So now we will start with our first panel discussion. May I request Mr. Ambarish Datta, MD and CEO, BSc Institute, to please come on the dais. Other panelists, Mr. Navneet Munot, Chief Investment Officer, SBI Mutual Fund. Mr. Aditya Mehta, National Retail Business Head, Asit Mehta, Investment Intermediates. Ms. Dipti Neelakantan, Chief Operating Officer from GM Financial Limited. Ms. Jyoti Tandon, Head Compliance and Company Secretary, Nomura Financial Advisory and Securities Private Limited.
Gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to the first panel discussion on careers in financial market. We have an electrifying panel today, and you would have noticed that how balanced we are. We have all the ladies on both sides of the panel, and we have the men in between. So we're going to make sure that we have a freewheeling chat. So we have about an hour for ourselves, and what I'm going to do is run a few questions on careers of financial market, opportunities in the market among all of us, and then leave the last few minutes open to all of you to ask questions. I'll, of course, also encourage that you ask a lot of questions so that all your doubts on financial markets and other things are covered and captured well. So without any wasting of any more time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with Navneet first, since he's the closest. Navneet, this is a good time to be in India. We're doing well, the markets are well, inflation is down. We have a good new government. I think except the cricket team, almost everything else seems to be doing good. So do you think this is a good time to get to financial market? What are your thoughts?
No, surely. First of all, he mentioned about the two women. Actually, I have a favorite line that the history of world would have been different. I think 2008 wouldn't have happened in terms of the global financial crisis if Lehman Brothers had more sisters on its board. On a more serious note, in terms of course, I mean, we are at a very interesting juncture. I think next couple of years, India is likely to produce an economic miracle which is unparalleled in human history. Because I think there has never been any democracy which has made the kind of growth that probably we have been making for the last 20 years and we are going to make for next 10 or 20 years with the kind of institutions that we have put in place. So the kind of independent central bank, the kind of market regulator, the kind of election commission, 800 million people voting. I mean, all those great institutions, and at such low base of per capita GDP of $1,500 per capita. So it's really going, for the next several hundred years, I think it's going to be such a miracle, and it's a great time to be here. Obviously, I mean, financial markets are going to be a critical component, critical part of the whole, the growth story of India. If I just do a parallel, so let's say talking about only my industry, the asset management, just to give you some numbers. So the total global asset management industry is $87 trillion, which is more than the global GDP. And just to put these some of the numbers in perspective, the largest bank in the world is ICBC of China, and that has asset base of $2.7 trillion. The largest asset manager in the world is BlackRock, and that has got asset base of $3.7 trillion. So the largest asset manager is substantially larger than the largest bank in the world. In India, of course, it's quite different. I mean, where the entire mutual fund industry is 10 or 11 lakh crores, even if you add, let's say, the money which is managed by the insurance, pension, and some of the other institutions, private equity funds and all, would still be a very small fraction of the total GDP. But the factors that have driven the growth of asset management world over, I'm sure the same factors are present today. So when you have a rising economy, you have good entrepreneurs, you have the good, market infrastructure in terms of stock exchange, regulator, the whole infrastructure which is in place. You have young population, rising incomes, and they have to save for retirement. And that's the right ingredients, in place for a sustained growth of the capital market, of the financial markets. And I think we've got that in place, and we have a very, very long way to go. So at this stage, I'll just take that much of time. We can go more deeper into individual industries and what are the options for the young people to enter in the specific segments later.
Sure. So moving on to you, Aditya, you're of course one of the youngest in the panel, and I want to ask you that, how do you see this opportunity in India? I mean, is it that the opportunity is right here knocking at the door, or are we sometime away from it? What's your advice to students to grab this by both their hands?
Is this on? I would agree with you that the opportunity is massive. My advice to students in general, and as you said, I'm the youngest here, so I'm still a student myself. There are three things that you really need to do in an economy like this. One is never forget your ethics. There is plenty of room for ethical people in the world. Don't ever think that being ethical will put you at a disadvantage to those who use unethical means. Remember, you are responsible for someone else's money and their financial future. That is the first point. The second point is, please go into detail and know your job well. The biggest disservice you can do to yourself is if you don't know your job well. Forget about the disservice to other people. And the third thing is that always be open to do sales. Okay, I started my career at sales as a salesperson. Lot of you are commerce students. You'll end up in jobs which require you to sell, especially as your first job. That things that you will learn in sales will never go to waste in your career. And it doesn't have to be your career, but it can definitely be your first job. So I think those people who are always open to doing sales will always find jobs quicker, they will always grow quicker, and it will install a can-do attitude in you which will be useful for your whole career and your whole life. If you do it ethically and if you do it well, you know your job, I think you are very well poised to take advantage of all these opportunities.
Great, Aditya. I'm glad you mentioned ethics right in the beginning, and I'll probably come back subsequently later and ask some more questions on how we could drive ethics in our formal education. But moving on, Dipti, you've of course been a part of the industry for long, and you've seen a fair amount of ups and downs. What's your advice to youngsters who are planning to explore a career in the financial markets?
First of all, I would say welcome. This is a great industry to be in. Having said that, I would also want to first and foremost put up a point of caution. I don't know if everybody today is as enamored as earlier people used to be, but generally, my experience was, and particularly in context of investment banking, that there was a lot of glamour in the minds of people attached to this industry. So you do clients' work, you travel a lot, and you stay in 5-star hotels and all. But ask anybody who has spent 20 years in investment banking, and he's been to a city in the world maybe 100 times, but he's not seen anything except the road between airport to client office to hotel. So there is no glamour. There is very hard work, and as Aditya mentioned, definitely there is a lot of value, focus on value and ethics. Remember, you're doing a job which will touch lives directly. So whether it is advising a company who's planning something, let us say you're in investment banking, you would advise them for fundraising, for restructuring, for a takeover or M&A, or for the general planning for the funds, let's say working capital management, etc., and a 5-year plan you chalk out with them. You do not have the liberty and definitely no right to go and faff, as they say in colloquial words, to go and say, do this, your work will be done and all. This is serious business. Handling money is a very serious business. Always put yourself in the other person's place and think from his perspective and give very serious advice. So that is the most important thing that I want to say. Don't be, not just financial services, but any career target that you have, do not get enamored by what looks apparent to you. That there is a Dipti who spent time here, she's wearing this fancy clothes and fancy whatever, comes in a big car. None of that is valid. Most important thing is People are working hard, really, really hard, with a lot of focus, a lot of attention, a lot of responsibility and accountability. There is no way away from accountability in this industry. You will hear about the scams and all happening in, say, banks. And that will be headlines. But everything that is going right doesn't get covered by media, remember that. So there is so much right happening, and that is what each one of you must be focused on, because that is the kind of life you want for yourself. So I would say that be serious about your work, know what you are going to do, because there are aspects within financial services industry, and I hope we can cover some of them now. And do not ever think that this is a way to become wealthy. I think wealth will follow if you are doing your work right. And if you keep doing it in a right way again and again and again, and don't lose the path along the way. So that's how I would approach it.
Great. Thank you so much, Dipti. Jyoti, coming to you, Dipti made a very apparent point about glamour in this market, and if you actually see compliance and back office, they've always been the most non-glamorous profiles in the market, but have been the most important one. And thanks to stricter regulations and more tighter rules and stuff like that, compliance is no longer, backroom activity. It's probably, like one of my old bosses used to say that strategy starts where the law ends. So, for you, what's your thought? How do you see youngsters who want to get into financial markets? What are the things they must look out, and why do you think it's a great time to be in?
Sure, thanks Ambarish. Thanks a lot for the opportunity, Dina Ben. I think I'll just pick up the theme from what really is playing out from all the other people with me on the panel. To add to all that has been said, and it's something that I think Ashish Bhai mentioned in his speech, the only other important thing that I wanted to add was learning. And I know, Aditya, you mentioned that you're still a student. I think all of us are students. So the regulators are making sure, even Indian markets, we have all these certification requirements. So even I have to clear an exam. There is no concept of grandfathering. So the thing that as students, you'll have to understand is that it's not just that you're studying or you're growing. Each one of us is learning today. Just like we are paying, we pay for, information to flow in quicker, right? Huge fees goes into data, receipt of data from the likes of Bloomberg's, fastest information access and those kind of things. I think we are also paying a huge fees for getting information of changes in the regulatory requirements. So again, I think Ashish Bhai or somebody was mentioning that regulations are changing so much. So whilst we may have benefited that we've learned something, and so it will kind of hold us instead for a few years, that's not a reality any longer. And Dina, when you mentioned that, they told you that you should kind of do the whole course again and they'll just give you some leverage. So keep learning. I always tell myself that every day, if you haven't learned on the job, you should not go back home. There should be something that you've learned every day. From a purely compliance perspective, definitely I've been a compliance person all my life. I was lucky to have stumbled into that role, to be very honest, because I started as a lawyer and a company secretary. When I started my career as a compliance person, there was no concept of a compliance officer. And now there cannot be, you won't get a registration unless you have a compliance officer in place. So that's really how it's changed in the last 2 decades. So the only thing that I would like to add is that, like Aditya said, get into the details. Regulatory requirements are very important. Regulations are very critical, of course. There are huge penalties that the regulators are levying for, and it's not just India, right? It's a global phenomena. The hugest cost today for doing any business is they look at the cost of compliance. And by compliance, it's not my salary. My salary will not even be a dot, or my team salary will not be a dot. It's the cost of meeting the regulatory requirements, which is huge, and that is because the markets are so complex. When you think of why did Lehman happen, right? I mean, you'll have, I'm sure, heard of it so many times. Why did it happen? If you look at it, why it wasn't as if there weren't enough intelligent people sitting there. Of course there were. But it was just that it's such a complex market and there's so much information technology, the pace at which it's growing, there's no way you can keep a track of the changes. So how do you really meet it all? So many times what happens is that it is not an intentional mistake. The defaults or errors that happen may not be intentional. So ethics, of course, is very critical. You don't have a future in any market, not just the financial markets, if you don't have your heart at the right place. But at the same time, keep in touch, make sure you're learning, and make sure that you know all the information that you should know before you get to the next stage. Whichever function, it need not be compliance, it need not be front office, it could be operations, it could be finance. No function or no job is not critical. Every job is very critical. The whole machinery cannot operate if each and every function is not doing its piece. So that's the only additional piece that I want to add. So of course there may not be glamour, but each function is very critical.
Sure. So thank you, Jyoti. And for all those guys who thought Madhuri Dixit used to work in investment banking, it's not true at all. But there's a lot of glamour otherwise which is still available. So I'm going to change track and probably dig a little deeper in terms of career. So, and let me put this to Navneet. So, Navneet, one of the things and the irony of financial market is that the institute I run, I often talk to our call center executives and I ask them when they make calls for prospective courses, what do they hear? And one of the irony is that while the financial market as an industry is pretty large, fairly complex, has sub-constituents like investment banking, broking, mutual fund, insurance, the general perception among people is that it's actually a gambling den. And a lot of them don't believe that there is a career opportunity for them to work on. A lot of these thoughts are also formed by parents who actually take critical career decisions for the students who are probably here. For example, they fund their studies. They also encourage them to come. Do you think there's a way to break this? Do you think there's a need to build up more confidence among parents and others and tell them that, look, a job in a financial market is as popular as anything else. It has a career prospect like any other industry.
Of course, I think it's changing. So if I look around, I think if I look into financial services, of course, I think if you look at the people by and large in the asset management, insurance and all, you would find, I mean, of course, they are from the top of the league, whether it's the IIT, IIM or whether the global Ivy League. So surely, the industry attracts the best talent. However, the general perception about that, this is not the place, and because I'm told there are a lot of people from, not only from Mumbai, but outside some of the other places also. So there would be opportunities everywhere. We've just opened in last couple of months 10 crore new bank accounts as part of the Jan Dhan Yojana. And the penetration of financial services in India is so abysmally low that it can only go up, and it has to go up substantially. People are so vulnerable because 90% of the workforce is not in organized sector, and you don't have any kind of social security. So unless you start saving early, start saving in a very disciplined fashion, unless you are really growing your wealth in a high inflation economy, it makes you hugely vulnerable. And the whole societal structure as the country is changing, obviously that, you had a situation where people were in villages, you had land, and then, the generation after generation, the next generation is going to take care of you, which is kind of breaking. And that's why I think the importance of, regular financial planning, disciplined financial planning is going to go up. And that's why in all the places, I think that millions of people are, we have just opened, crores of bank accounts, but millions of those people will have to start investing, whether in a, whatever, whether it's a post office or a long-term deposit or maybe, at some stage in an asset management product, they will need insurance, they will need lots of other financial planning. So obviously, I think there are going to be a huge number of opportunities. And as the, mindset changes, obviously, I write a person of the year every year. And this year, my person of the year is Enlightened Young Indian. Where I can clearly see the, the forces, the way this young India. So in 2014 general election, of course, it's a big mandate, but what we have forgotten, I think, is basically also reflecting the young India, which is really, I would say, the hunger for change in the young India. And it's reflecting not only in politics, but in business, society, the way the whole entrepreneurship wave is going around. I'm sure that will also, take large number of people into the financial services where they can add, great value to the society apart from the economy.
Sure. So Aditya, Navneet talked about that societal impact in about 360-degree can really impact, and that can probably change the perception of where we are. You represent a broking company, and I'm sure when you attract top talent, you walk into an IIM or a top B school, you often find difficulty trying to get them to see value in working in a broking house and how they could add value to their career. How do you think students who are aspiring to get into the market can actually learn by working in broking houses and building up their career from there?
So a big part of being a broking house is distributing products. It could be, stock markets, it could be mutual funds, it could be debt instruments, insurance, real estate, alternative investments, international investments. With a country so large, the person who is very good at distributing is going to be the kingmaker in the years to come. So I think if you work in a broking firm, you have access to all these asset classes, a lot of different customer types, and a lot of different geographies, which is difficult to do in fund management or in insurance or in maybe in banking. So that is the pitch that we give, that if you want to learn multiple asset classes, multiple client types, institutions, retail, HNI, and multiple geographies, then it's a good place to come. Unfortunately, the question is usually not why broking versus why not insurance. The question is your brand known, and are you paying me 2 times what my fees were? So I think in the last 2 or 3 years, we are seeing a slight change in that, because many times people went for brands or the CTC as they call it, and ended up doing sales. So there is a change, but I think, as I said, the thing we focus on is a complete understanding of the financial markets at one shot is going to be more likely in a broking firm, especially in a retail broking firm, versus being in one particular industry.
Sure. Dipti, I want to take on from that. I also remember in Dina Ben's speech, she referred how everyone wants to become an research analyst, and if you actually see from a student perspective, a lot of them usually decide their career choices by reading newspapers and actually listening to only the good stories. So, you also spoke about how they think that it's a very easy job, you get to travel, have lots of fun, but they kind of very conveniently miss that there's a lot of hard work which goes in. Now, for someone who basically beginning their career, how are you going to encourage them to stop looking at things like cost to companies, things like job profile, and look beyond that and see why a career in financial market must begin by learning first in the market and then building up from there on?
Well, I think I would say this is one industry which allows you to move from place to place. So if you went into manufacturing company, let us say, and your core competence is, say, purchase, then I don't know how many people in purchase department can move on to marketing or to production, etc. But in financial services, particularly if you are in a firm which does multiple activities within financial services, there's tremendous scope to move. But at the same time, I must caution that you have to be aware that what work you start with will be the work that firm will expect you to deliver on maybe 24/7. So you will spend long hours, you will spend a lot of work time for delivering what is asked of you. But you will also have opportunity to learn something more. So for example, if you are in research, we started with research. And let's say you are in the research for broking companies' clients. So what are the stocks to pick? Because research also has end objective. So as Dina mentioned in her speech, research could be technical, could be fundamental, could be sectoral. But at the same time, it can also be differentiated by what's the end objective. So are you advising a trading clientele? Then your research end objective is different versus are you researching for an investment bank, where you are researching which company in a particular sector that you are covering is going to need capital or is going to come under stress, and therefore there may be need for their long-term planning, or there may be really candidate who is best sold, and you go and convince the management that you will not be able to survive in long term. So that's a very different kind of research. But let us say you are doing research of, say, investment bank. And that is where you are taking a more longer term view of a company. So this company in this sector is performing well or mediocre or not at all. You can take IT sector for simple understanding. There's all kinds of companies and there is so much consolidation happening. So there you are not going to see a particular stock is going to go up 20% tomorrow. You are not going to see in 1 year it will grow or drop so much. You are going to see this company can survive or not. This company has to add products or not. This company has to add regions, de-risk, all kinds of, those are the management kind of analysis you are going to do rather than the stock analysis. While you are doing that, and as a fresh entrant, a youngster, you are going to pretty much do what your seniors will tell you. ये analysis कर लो, ये model बना लो, ये valuation कर लो, you know, check out the internet and look at the comparables and stuff like that. You have to do all that, but at the same time be aware that I want to know what my work is going to be used for, and how it is going to be used, and who is going to use it, what is he going to do with it. He went for a meeting with this work. When he comes back, I should be inquisitive enough to go and ask him, how did this go? Was my product useful? Should I have done something more? Did you need something more? What is the next step? That is what will take you to next level of understanding. And that is what will possibly make you the salesperson or the coverage person, as it is called in investment banking. That, okay, I did research on IT company. I did it for maybe 2 years in this manner. I was very engaged in the work I was doing and also with the people who use my work. And thereafter, maybe you will be ready to start taking on assisting these people to go to companies, meet the client along with them, and actually understand how the decisions are made, how the matter is progressed, and then maybe move to becoming a coverage person yourself or becoming an M&A execution person yourself. So I see sky is the limit. Or you could completely move to the broking side and say, hey, I understand IT industry very well. I will do the IT research for stock trading. So there you can, across the board, look at options to move on. But that will only happen if you will rise above what you are doing on a given basis, because large organizations work on a silo, as I call it. And this is the Western influence on India since last 20 years or more, where the companies will divide the work areas. So within investment banking, I can today count 6, 7 areas within which we recruit people and they keep doing work in that area. To be an investment banker, you need to be aware of all those 7 areas of work. And that will happen only if you are inquisitive, enthusiastic, and action-oriented. You will step out beyond what is given to you and try and learn. And then you will be ready to become a full-fledged investment banker, a full-fledged broker, or a full-fledged client service person, depending on what appeals to you as you go along. So I would say, once again, this connects with learning, but beyond that, it also connects with the attitude that you have towards your work. And none of the glamour and all come in the picture here, but the glamour follows. The success, the salary increases, the promotions, performance bonuses, all that happens when you are doing work in this manner.
Right. So, Jyoti, you mentioned in your earlier chat that you almost stumbled upon this compliance job. But if you actually see it from a student's perspective, there are 3 parts. First is choice of an industry. And now with so much of choice, you can almost become a DJ musician, to a spa operator, to, a health management head. There's so many career options available. The first choice most of the youngsters today need to make is, should I get into the financial market? The second is to identify which sub-segment should I get in. Should I get into compliance? Should I get into front-end sales? Should I get into operations? Should I get into marketing? And then, of course, finding out a relevant course which can skill him for that. Of course, to be a good professional, you need skill, knowledge, attitude, and we can come on to those aspects later on. But at a stage when they're just in college or they're just stepping into a professional world, what are those things they should look out for? Because it appears that they look out for things which actually don't matter. They look out for things like brand name of the institute, companies who visit for placement, cost to company, large alumni members, which probably are not even relevant. They don't matter at all.
Yeah, although it's an unfortunate reality, because I was just thinking as everybody was talking that of course we do want to be very encouraging, and like everybody is saying, we welcome all of you into the industry. But it's a catch-22, because I was really thinking back that how many new entrants do we have with no experience in my organization? And when you think about it, it'll be probably, I couldn't think of anybody that we took, who's just a fresher. So it's really tough, at least in our kind of market, because one, it's a very competitive market. Why has it become so difficult? Obviously, the complexity has increased, but there's been competition has also increased. With the competition and the pace increasing, it doesn't give you any flexibility or time. You don't have the luxury of just thinking and reacting to any requests which may come to your desk, whichever function you're doing, right? That I'll come back to them tomorrow because it's 6 o'clock I'm leaving. All those concepts are all gone, right? Because we have everybody will ask us when they want to join, right? Is it a 8:30? What is your working hours? And we always say that it starts at 8:30, but there's no end, right? So, like you said rightly, I agree that you do, as students, have to think through what is your interest area. Be clear that is this the industry that's going to excite you. Like Deena Ben said, people come in wanting to be research analysts and 2 years later realize that this is not something that they thought it was going to be, and then come back to do something different. It's very unfortunate. And therefore, the best way to do it is, in fact, doing the courses, right? Because that's the only way you can get there. How do you know what is it really going to be? Read up, study. Because like I said, I stumbled into it, but not in that sense, because I was already a trained lawyer. I was already a company secretary. And the moment I got into a finance company, I did a diploma in financial services to understand what it is. And that was the first year of joining a financial sector company. I had the luxury, because that was 20 years back, right, that I could get that opportunity. Today, I don't know if, hand to heart, I would really think if I'd hire a person with no experience. We don't have that luxury, because you're not going to be allowed to take people and train them to do the job. You need the job done right now. So the best way to do it, do all the certification courses that you can get a handle on. Pick up the area that is of interest. Get to know the product. Try to understand as best as you can. Reach out to your peers in the industry. Wherever you're working, whoever, if this is a sector you want to be into, attend these kind of sessions, get to know the products. And again, like Aditya mentioned, right, you need to know the product. And sales is probably the best place to be in, because even if you are put against a person who's a 20-year-old investor and you're 21, he'll ask you questions day one, first day itself, you'll be in a spot, you won't know the answers to. Everybody thinks that they have all the questions and better, they're smarter than the other person. So probably that's the best way to go about doing that.
Sure, thank you. So I'm going to...
Sorry, I hope I have not put a damper.
Oh, no, absolutely not. So I'm going to go ahead straight to Aditya. Aditya, you mentioned about sales skills, and, I understand that how critical sales skills have become. Unfortunately, selling as a skill has often been viewed as a silo. Apparently, selling was only meant for salesmen and for a little bit for marketing guys, and everyone else was supposed to be a non-sales guy. I realize that your frustration probably comes from the fact that when you hire someone, they have a large aversion to this job, anything called sales. In fact, I remember in one of our MBA program, we had a job posting in BSc for listing sales. And you will not believe, 99% of people didn't apply for it because they said it is sales. And we finally had to find one intelligent fellow, and we had to actually coach, personally meet and tell them. So a lot of people misuse the word, sales. So my question is, in this world of Facebook where a selfie now is sales, what do you think is the youngsters need to do to build selling skills before they get into the professional world?
When I look at today's generation, when I pass by my old college, HR in Churchgate, I see people are far more extroverted than they used to be in my generation as well, which is only 10 years ago. The first and most important attribute you need to have to be good at sales is being extroverted. So I think for today's generation, it comes or it should come far more naturally to build sales. And one thing everyone must realize is that even if you don't want a career in sales, to get a job, you still have to sell yourself to your employer. So there is really no escape from sales. Um, it's more hard work, but the potential for supernormal rewards and incentives is also the highest in sales. Uh, I don't hear of our guys who work in operations getting crazy bonuses. It's always the salespeople who get the crazy bonuses. At the same time, they are the first ones to get fired for non-performance as well. So um, I don't, all I'm saying is try it out. Because if you're going to be a manager of say 10 or 20 people tomorrow, you need to know their jobs, to be able to manage those people. Uh, we go crazy trying to explain to our fresher MBAs that it does not justify your salary to do sales. But you must do sales so you understand how to manage a team of salespeople. Unfortunately, a lot of them are not willing to do that 6 months also of जो रगड़ना कहते हैं ना, they don't want to do that.
Is it also, Aditya, that when we are growing in our business, when the market is enlarging, the larger number of jobs will all be the customer-facing, the front-end jobs, and that's where most of the sales jobs will come by. So, isn't it true that as the total employment numbers go up in the market, those are the real jobs which will up for available, and they should probably get skilled to take them on.
Absolutely, and I don't think there's anything big or small or good or bad about sales. It's if you get a kick out of selling, then it's your job. I mean, I have so many stories where I took a taxi from here to the airport, and I convinced the taxi driver to do a 100 rupee SIP. Okay,
Right.
it doesn't really earn income for me, but I get a kick out of convincing someone. And end of the day, I've helped that person invest some of his money for his future. So it's, I mean, it is going to be much more necessary. Uh, the sooner you realize it, the better it is for your career.
Right. Yeah.
If I can add to that, I think the aversion to sales, so to say, is also partly because of the fear of failure. And that is not so much only limited to sales, though that being the front client-facing job will immediately get thought of. Because, for example, if you are doing a regulatory work and you have to get your clearances from regulator, so there are a lot of people I know who are in front office. They can face the client, but I tell them you have to go to regulator and get this particular piece cleared because you have to justify and defend your hypothesis in the document. Then they say, no, please, will you come with me? Or why don't I tell you everything and you go and talk to regulator? So that is their fear of failure, that I will not be able to convince the regulator. So if you know your product and if you are passionate about it, then you will be able to convince whoever is in front of you about what work you have done. So sales is nothing but that. And more importantly, I think, as Aditya says, you can convince the other person if you totally believe in what you are talking. And I think sales in investment is very simple and easiest thing to do. So because it touches everybody, right? Every small person will also want to know how to make little more money on his savings. So you can go and talk to him about it.
Right. So, I have time for two more questions before I throw it open to the audience. But, I want to ask Navneet. Navneet, it said that had Thomas Edison gone to a business school, he would have made larger candles. Do you believe a good business school education spoils, market expertise? And strangely, I think none of you have gone to a business school, and Aditya is almost halfway through. Or have you finished from? Yeah, so he's halfway to London Business School. So, is that true? Do you agree with that?
So, when we are hiring, of course, we are looking for some of those qualifications, an MBA or a CA, and all, of course. But over a period of time, I think it's the on-the-job learning that really makes a difference. And as Dinaben said earlier, read more. I would say, just remember these two words always in life: read more, meet more. In financial services, I think that networking is important, and also your constant learning is important. So I did CA in 93, but I did CFA in 2005, then I did CAI in 2008, then I did FRM in 2009 at the age of like 40 with kids and a work which has always been very stressful. A lot of people used to say that being in market for 20 years, why do you have to probably write these exams? But it just puts you, I mean, it kind of refreshes your probably understanding, knowledge, and also kind of, puts some kind of pressure on yourself to devote certain time to learning. So that's very, very critical, I think. So of course you need to have that because we are living in a market which is highly competitive. If you write to an asset manager that I think I have all the ingredients in place, I have an analytical ability, I have the right attitude, whatever Buffett has listed, the qualities that a great investor should have, I have, would you hire me as an analyst? I'm not very sure about that. So that gives an entry point, but beyond that point, I think constant learning is very important.
Sure. Jyoti, I had promised I'm going to ask you this, but I want to tell, I want you to tell all the students that ethics and ethics in business has been extremely important. In fact, Aditya also mentioned in his initial remarks that ethical selling is extremely important. How do you teach ethics? And primarily when you have a scenario where what we teach in college is hardly relevant in industry, and what industry wants is not even taught in colleges. How do you involve subjects like ethics, honesty, and stuff like that in a course curriculum? How do you encourage people to be ethical before they walk in to work with you?
So the basic rule which has to be followed is obviously there is no easy money and there is no quick returns. That's not a reality, right? So similarly in a job as well, I think one should be very clear that don't expect rewards, to come up as soon as you join the job, 3 months, 6 months. And of course, we were also saying that you can move if you don't like it. But the reality also is that I think there was a study that was done, this book called Outliers, which said something to the effect that after you spent about 10,000 hours on a particular task, you'll be an expert on that, which effectively means, something like a decade, yeah. Right? At least. So every time you're jumping a job, you're probably losing that advantage that what you've learned. So, of course, please think before you decide what you want to do. So, if you're saying, say, sales seems to be like a good starting point, doesn't mean that you start with sales. It should be something that excites you. And then more to your point on how do you teach compliance, again, it's actually just ethics. So, what I always have said is that ask yourself, right, the question that if I'm doing something and a question comes to my mind saying that does this seem right to me? And you feel not so sure about it, don't do it. That's how simple it is. Compliance officer's job is not complicated to that extent because everybody is a compliance officer. So if there is something that you have a question in your mind that this doesn't seem right, most likely it's not right, don't do it. That's how simple it is. And if you can follow that rule, after that, raise that with the organization, whatever is the function that you have to raise it to. I'm not just talking as compliance then, of course, because, if you're a salesperson, talk to your manager, saying that this is the query that has come on a product, and does this seem right, and what do I do with it? Take that up, raise it, escalate it is what we always say. Ask those questions. Whoever it is that needs to be raised, that question has to be raised with, do that. No questions are dumb questions. You've heard that enough times, I'm sure, So please ask those questions and do your diligence before you proceed. That's just those 4 basic rules for compliance.
So, we're going to throw open, sorry, yeah.
The same thing I think everybody has mentioned, but it's very close to my heart. And I think the importance of ethics, because I think in this generation, because everybody wants to, whatever, get rich or get successful very quickly. And then that's why I think in our industry, particularly in financial services, where the line between ethical and unethical, the line between what is right and wrong is very thin, because a lot of business actually gets done taking advantage of some of those arbitrage which are available. But it's very important because I think we are going to spend 40, 50 years, the way average age is going, most likely if you are in 20s today, there is a high likelihood you are going to work for next 50 years. And that's why building that, a career which is on a very solid foundation of integrity and ethics is very, very critical. I think this is my favorite line. If you have integrity, nothing else matters. If you don't have integrity, nothing else matters. So that's the most important thing. I think more than learning, more than your network, more than your knowledge, I think hard work, passion, everything is important. But the number one thing that I think everybody must focus in life is integrity and ethical practice.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Navneet. So We're going to throw open the floor for questions. So I'll request whoever would want to ask a question to stand up, raise their hand, speak loudly, introduce yourself, indicate which college you represent. If you want to specifically ask any of the panelists, then please do so. We have volunteers who can help you with mics. So if you actually stand up and raise your hand, a mic will reach you as well.
Good evening. As being a student, I would like to ask how practically we learn into financial market. Like we study now theoretically about financial market. So as a student, what should we do to get into financial market? How practically we should learn? How should we invest or something?
Sure. So, Dipti, do you want to take this theory versus practical? How do you balance both?
It depends on what you're really going to want to train on. Like if you want to try investing, then there are a lot of websites only where you create mock portfolio and just see how your judgments go and all. But if you wanted to learn about something like, say, regulatory requirements around broking, then there is no other choice except to actually read up the requirements. So SEBI site is quite rich. You can just go to separate sections. Even stock exchange sites are very rich. So you read those. And maybe if you have class interactive situations, or if you have internships, or if you have visits to broking offices or stock exchanges, ask those questions. And as Jyoti mentioned, no question is dumb. Particularly when a student asks, we are all very happy to explain in great details. So everybody will react in the same way. They will explain. They will be happy to help. So there are a few things which you can do yourself. A few things you have to read up. And try and get those meetings. As a student, most times I feel that there is a hesitation to go out and ask. So use platforms like this institute at Bombay Stock Exchange, or the companies which are more willing to, give time, and work through your faculties. They can maybe arrange group visits, etc. That is how you'll get the practical. And when you join a company, nobody expects you to be an expert. So they will give you training on the job as well.
Thank you so much.
Right. Yeah, sorry. Aditya wants to add a 10-second.
Just one point. Way too many people your age don't read a newspaper regularly. And I don't mean Mumbai Mirror, okay?
Yeah.
I mean a proper...
Okay. We can take a quick poll. How many of you read a business newspaper every day?
Almost.
Yeah. Actually, that's not too good either. Okay, so let me ask the other way around. How many of you log into Facebook every day? I think some of the folks who actually regularly check Facebook are not even raising their hand halfway. But see, yes, they are actually on Facebook right now. Yeah. So I think, you're right. So I think the point is you should begin by at least reading a newspaper. And like Dipti said, if you go actually to the BSE Stock Exchange website, one of the largest, a lot of repository, go to SEBI's website, a lot of data. Actually, there's a lot of free information available. It's that no one really takes the efforts to access. So let's move on to the next question. Yeah, someone from the back had raised his hand the first. Yeah, can you reach a mic to him? Okay, we'll reach you a mic. In the meantime, we'll take something which is close.
Very good evening, sir. My name is Karan Debriwal. I'm from Hinduja College. My question is related to financial market. Sir, what is the main reason? Yesterday, Sensex has slung 600 points in some couple of minutes. What is the main reason for that thing, sir?
Okay, so this is of course strictly outside the subject we are discussing today about careers in financial market. My suggestion is you should take it up with any of the panelists after we finish this. But let's move on to the next one.
I just mentioned think long term.
Yeah, so these. I hope you heard when Dina Ben was talking in her speech. She said, financial markets have a lot of excitement. So these are more exciting than a Hollywood or a Bollywood potboiler. So you will have some of these twists and turns every morning. And the trick is, like Navneet was saying, is to look long term and don't get too much sweat with short term. Right. I think the gentleman now has a mic. So yeah.
My question is to Jyoti ma'am. Ma'am, even I am pursuing my CS degree, and I've completed my graduation in financial markets. So what financial market recruiters want is a degree in finance and some experience along with it, or the thing which we have been discussing from last 40 minutes is the first point what comes is integrity and ethics. And the base of integrity and ethics is knowing rules and regulations. So along with financial markets, the personals who have some regulation knowledge, for example, I am pursuing my LLB degree, which is a fact. So will I be more preferred when I complete my CS degree, LLB and financial markets, or my friends who have completed my graduation and have some 6 to 8 months experience? What would be more preferable?
So it'll, thanks for your question. I think largely it'll of course depend on what is the role you're looking for, because to be very honest, if it's a front office kind of role where you need to have client interaction, you need to understand the product, there is a sales kind of role engagement, definitely there needs to be more hands-on experience before anybody will take you for that opportunity. But if it was for something in a control function like a compliance or operations or that kind of function, the certifications definitely will be a prerequisite, and they would really help you to get to the next level, because that shows that you have actually learned more than what really that course was giving, which was specialized in that area. So if the certifications that you're doing are in line with or are what is required to get that's required for that job, it would definitely help you better. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hello, my name is David Shah. I just want to know what's the difference between a professional trader and a sub-broker.
Okay, Aditya, for you.
Professional trader is usually a customer of a broking firm who uses his knowledge of the markets to earn a living full-time through the stock markets. A sub-broker is an authorized person who acts as a franchisee of the broker and gets customers for the broking firm. So he is a service provider, whereas a professional trader is trading for earning his own income.
Okay.
So, Aditya, this question might sound actually quite dumb, but the fact is, are we jargonizing too much in our market? Because a lot of students may not even figure out different job roles they apply for. So they look at keywords like research, vice president, analyst, and they say, this must be a great job, let's apply. Yeah, so...
there is a lot more jargon which has come these days. Like for example, my grandfather still calls it a bolt, instead of neat or keat or now or whatever we have. There is a lot of jargon, but I think that happens in pretty much any industry. And kids these days are very used to abbreviations, especially while chatting. Yeah. So I don't think it's such a big deal though.
True.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can we take some questions from this side? Okay, we'll go to the gentleman from the back.
Can you tell me the difference between the investment research analyst and what is their role? How it is different from investment banker? Because as in both are researching for the best investment.
Is it for someone specific?
No, anyone.
Navneet, would you want to answer it?
So the investment, the research analyst could be in an asset management firm, could be in a broking firm, could be in an investment banking firm, and a person, who's analyzing companies, who are either analyzing macroeconomy as an economist or analyzing industries. So I think he's the research analyst. Investment banker is a more generic term. Anybody who's working in investment banking. What an investment banker does is basically raising money for the companies through various means. So either you are on a public issue or you are placing it, the equities or the debt instruments with institutions or through some other sources. Also advising companies on corporate finance like a mergers and acquisition, the restructuring of the balance sheet, capital restructuring, so on and so forth. So investment banker is a very generic term. Anybody who's working in an investment bank, and I told you what an investment bank is all about. And a research analyst could be in any firm. So either maybe he's doing, so in our asset management firm, we have research analysts who suggest fund managers what to buy, what not to buy. Similarly, a broking firm will have a research analyst who will advise the clients in terms of the stocks they should look at. Similarly, even an investment banking firm may have a research analyst who's basically helping the investment bankers in terms of advising the companies or their clients.
Right. So we'll take another 2 questions. So
hello everyone.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
Hello everyone. I'm Nizam College. My question is, sir. Actually, I just want to know if someone is a fresh graduate. What is the way of entering into the booking industry? Do I pursue a postgraduate diploma? How do I go about it?
To put it very simply, if you've just finished your bachelor's, work for 2 years, okay? Work in sales, client acquisition, dealing, whatever it be, with a franchise, with a broking branch, with a head office, then do an MBA, and then try to apply for a more substantial position in a broking firm. I've probably recruited over 1,000 people in the last 3 to 4 years that I've been part of it. I never look at the MBA. I never look at the degree, how much percent he got in maths or whatever. I look at maturity, I look at curiosity, and I look at a can-do attitude. That only comes when you have spent some time in the real world working. So I always would advise to have a gap between your bachelor's and your master's, but also do your master's and then have expectations of getting a serious, well-paying job in a broking firm.
Right. So we have a gentleman on the first row.
Good evening all. I am Krunal. I am having close to 9 years experience in IT industry and worked close to 5 years of that in BFSI domain, which is the largest customer of IT, and I have worked in abroad. I understand the program is pretty much for the aspiring grads who are entering into industry. What I am looking for is, it happens especially in Indian education system, the options are very much channelized. Either you go pursue science, the merit holders or the higher percentages, the second batch goes to commerce or so on and so forth. But what about like the interest which are discovered later? Like personally, if I am taking my example, after getting my first salary, the real first finance kicked into my mind. I am an engineering grad, by the way.
Basically lateral movements.
Yeah. So having some experience of that domain, not directly but in IT, or reading a lot, meeting a lot of people in that domain, how would the industry welcome such folks who are coming with some background, not academically, but having real world experience? What attributes to be gathered on that? Any certifications or so, or what?
So Dipti, how does, so his basic question is, how does one make a transition from, a line job to a finance job midway through a career? Is it a path to acquire certification?
Quite possible. Depends on what specialization one has. But in investment banking, there are plenty of examples where people with industry focus or industry experience have moved into research, client coverage kind of work. Obviously, they have to be a lot more motivated and keen to learn the technicalities of the business that they are moving to. But on the research side and client coverage side, you do have options to move. At the same time, I must say that while we are talking about degrees, MBAs and all that, in investment banking, we quite like people who have technical background. We also look at people with liberal arts background, though in India there are not too many such trainings. But we do look at people because we believe that that makes a good mix of team within the firm to look at various things in a more holistic manner and not just a pure academically financial manner.
Sure.
If I can add, actually, it's just the evolution of the industry. If I look at US, we'll find several people who have started their career in academics. After 10 or 20 years, they would decide to set up a hedge fund because they have found something. They think there is some way of making money, which probably the Wall Street doesn't know. Similarly, there are people who start as an analyst, a fund manager, they go and pursue some different kind of career, which is a very normal thing. And also, I think it gels with the whole society where an innovation, where a different thinking is actually appreciated. I think as we grow, obviously, those things will open up. Another interesting aspect, I believe that in next 10 or 20 years, technology is going to play such a big role in our industry that lots of jobs today, as you think of financial services, a typical analyst, broker, sales guy, will actually become a core technology job where actually your knowledge, domain knowledge of what finance means doesn't really matter that much. The number of people who will be hired in some way, something to do with the technology may actually be higher than maybe the frontline analyst or the frontline fund managers. And I give you a classic example. Alibaba.com in China, without any experience in financial services or asset management, in last 1.5 years has got more number of clients in a money market mutual fund, a simple product, than all the mutual funds in China put together in 25 years. That's the power of Alibaba.com. And I won't be surprised that some of these kind of things happen here, because I think the whole wave of digitization can really disrupt the financial services in a manner where lots of people, if you have something, an innovative idea, I'm told that somebody in Bangalore has set up something like zerodhar.com or something. You just pay 20 rupees and you trade as much as you want. And there will be different kinds of people who will do different things, because it's not a rocket science. It's a very simple thing. As Buffett says that, IQ beyond 120 or something could be a liability in my business. So, and there are a lot of other people who come from different streams, they will bring different kinds of perspective, and probably there could be a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Algo trading is one of them. Mathematics scholars started algo trading.
Right. So we'll take one final question and wrap this. So, okay, whoever reaches the mic first will take the question. Oh, you have a mic already, so we'll take the question here.
My question is for Jyoti, ma'am. Ma'am, I like to start my own investment firm. As you told, there's a lot of regulatory environments. So where do I start? We have SEBI, we have BSE and other stock exchanges. We have RBI as well. So what is the basic research needed to start an investment firm?
No, so sorry, you want to start an investment firm in terms of
dealing in a guilds
offering
fund,
broking
funds.
Services or making your own investments?
No, not making my own investment, but offering services like guild funds, index funds, as well as SPIs.
So I think you will have to have a full setup. You will have to employ people for all the various functions that are required, the control functions. Where you will have to start is, of course, getting the necessary registrations, and qualified people will be required. There will be all SEBI, in fact, if you're talking about more of the securities market, definitely requires at least 2 people with 2 years experience minimum, in the particular industry if it's broking. So there will be a lot of those kind of things. What you could probably do is just go to the SEBI website, see which is the application form for a broking license, and that's a good starting point. It will tell you everything that you need there before you start that.
Is there any kind of diploma offered by the Intermerchant Chamber to if so you have a heads-on idea on the regulatory environment?
I don't think there's anything which IMC offers, but definitely there's BSc, there's NISM offers the national.
You should visit the website and
Yeah, there's the National Institute for Securities
here.
Market,
right,
which offers these certifications that you have to in any case clear before you get the license. So
right.
Thank you.
Right. So I'm afraid we've run out of time completely. There's an exciting second panel coming up for discussion, and I guess we have a quick break in between where you can network and connect with some of us. So thank you very much for being here. And like you would have heard in this session that financial market are an exciting place to be in, and not only can you build a career, but there's also a place where you can create a professional life. So thank you very much, Jyoti, Navneet, Aditya and Dipti. Pleasure to have all of you, and look forward to interact again. Thank you.
Hello. Yeah, may I request Mr. Ambarish Datta to present mementos to our speakers? Dina ma'am. Wait. Everybody please, there is a 15 minutes break for tea and coffee. So we will gather after 15 minutes.
तुका बोला तर तुका ऐकायचं ऐकायला येत नाही म्हणजे मध्ये म्हणजे असं